This is the Music City Prep Clinic training for effective interview techniques. You have conducted interviews before, but you can do it even better.
In order to maintain consistency across all MCPC training experiences, let's review a few concepts you're already familiar with. As you've heard before, healthcare is a commodity service. The MCPC experience is what we sell here at the clinic. It is our product. Our patients feel that experience, and they share it with others. Patient satisfaction is how we measure how they feel about their experience. We want patients of the Music City Prep Clinic to have great experiences when they trust us with their sexual health care. Our Net Promoter Scores are measures of how our patients feel about their experience with our services.
At MCPC, we understand the relationship between employee satisfaction and patient satisfaction. Our regular employee satisfaction surveys measure how our employees feel about their experience as an MCPC employee. Our employees feel that experience and they share it with others. We want employees at the Music City Prep Clinic to have great experiences when they trust us with their livelihood. Our high satisfaction scores tell us that many employees are already having great experiences, and they are telling others about the quality work environment they have with us, as well as our mission, purpose, and vision. By understanding what qualifies as a great experience, we can intentionally design our human resources management and employee relations to consistently deliver great experiences to our employees.
Many healthcare organizations create policies and procedures for consistency. At MCPC, we create great experiences and put the policies and procedures into place to ensure that our employees have great experiences every day. The recruitment process is another great experience by design. We prepare future employees for a great work experience, even before they begin their first day. We even want applicants who do not get a job offer to have a great interview experience.
Before the process can begin, there has to be an accurate job description. This description will guide the job advertisement, the screening of applicants, the interview, and if the candidate is hired, their performance evaluations. Once this piece is in place, the candidate recruitment process can start.
There are several steps in the recruitment process, and the job interview is just one of them. Before we talk about the interview specifically, let's look at other steps in the recruitment process. Don't forget that human resources, frequently referred to as HR, will always be available to guide you through the process.
Step 1 is the job posting. The advertisement of an open position plays an important role in selling the position to prospective candidates.
Step 2 is candidate application and management. This step consists of several actions. The candidate applies for a job, HR reviews the candidate resumes and forwards the suitable ones to the hiring managers. There is a thorough and consistent process for screening, responding to, and identifying qualified candidates. Unsuitable inquiries should be resolved quickly and definitively. Qualified candidates should be quickly identified and move through the recruitment workflow process. Candidate applications are collected during this phase and made available to hiring managers. HR should be able to identify the status of every candidate and where they are in the process. HR will oversee moving candidates through the process according to company time standards, but hiring managers are responsible for reviewing resumes, providing feedback to HR on the candidates, and making themselves available for interviews within the company's time standards. This ensures that candidates and hiring managers move through a timely and orderly recruitment workflow without unnecessary delays.
Step 3 is the interview, which we will explore in more detail later in this training. There may be several interviews, depending on the position of interest. The interviews can take place in person, by phone, or by video.
Step 4 is collecting letters of recommendation, checking references, and verification of professional licenses for certain positions, such as medical providers.
Step 5 is the job offer. If the hiring manager recommends the candidate for hire, HR will make a written job offer. The offer is provided through a standardized letter. Hiring managers should never make the job offer themselves. Job offers are always made by HR.
Step 6 is offer acceptance. If the offer is accepted, the candidate will provide a written acceptance agreeing to the conditions of the offer.
Step 7 is the background check. For the safety of patients and other staff, we routinely conduct background checks on all candidates who have accepted offers.
Step 8 is onboarding. This multi-day process for establishing the candidate as an employee includes orientation and new hire training. It is the first day on the job and should be an exciting and welcoming experience for the new employee.
Step 9 is assignment. The new employee is assigned to the hiring manager for additional training and to begin their new duties and responsibilities.
The job interview is arguably the most important and stressful part of the job-seeking process for the candidate. It is also one of the most important steps in the recruitment process for the company because it affords a limited opportunity to meet the candidate in person and decide if they are right for the job. It is important that the hiring managers and other interviewers know how to make the best use of the interview.
There are several things that happen before you get to interview a potential new employee. 1, you realize you need more help in your department and you get approval for the position. This may be an existing position for which you are replacing an employee or adding additional staff. It could also be a new position never before filled. 2, determine the job description for the position you want to fill. A job description likely already exists unless this is a new position. If it is a new position, how will you title the job? What duties will the person perform? What qualifications will they need? 3, you want to hire the best candidates. How and where will you advertise to fill the position? 4, keep human resources informed on the status of your candidates and the interview process. Let the HR team know which resumes you like and why, and which ones you believe to be good potential candidates for the job.
It's important to plan ahead for the interview process. Objective measures are important to be fair with the interviews and to select the best candidate for the job. Measure each candidate with the same criteria. What questions do you need to ask in the interview to clarify the resume? Do you see gaps in employment? Do you have questions about training or skills? Is there anything about the resume that you don't understand? Everyone applying for the same job should be compared equally with the same objective measures. Notice how well each candidate's resume correlates with the job description of the position for which you are hiring. Always consult the HR team when you have questions or need help. They have lots of experience to help you keep the interview process fair and effective.
Here at the Music City Prep Clinic, we believe behavioral interviews are the best way to go about selecting the right person for the job. During behavioral interviews, the interviewer asks the candidate open-ended questions. This gives the interviewer a chance to see how well the candidate communicates, their ability to understand the job they are applying for, and to assess the candidate's critical thinking skills. This interview technique also minimizes the candidate's ability to lie about their resume or previous experience. By asking questions that are open-ended, you're not hinting at the answer you are seeking. The candidate can answer in a way that demonstrates their ability to explain and communicate. You also get to hear the candidate explain how they problem solve or take initiative to work effectively with others. With behavioral interviewing, we are not simply asking questions and checking boxes. We are inviting the candidate to tell the story of why they are the right person for the job. Take a look at the following example of what not to do.
Welcome. We are so glad to hear that you are interested in joining us here at Music City Prep Clinic. I reviewed your resume and I'd love to just ask you a few questions during this interview. Did you learn about the job from a friend?
No.
Oh. Okay. Did you see the job posted online?
No.
Let's move on to the next question. Do you think you'd like to work for the Music City Prep Clinic?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I guess we'll just keep moving down the list. Have you performed similar duties previously?
Yes.
Okay. Do you get along well with others?
Yes.
And have you ever had difficulty getting along with a supervisor?
No.
The interview falls flat because the interviewer is asking closed-ended questions that don't prompt the candidate to share much information about themselves. Maybe the job candidate would like to say more, but thinks the interviewer doesn't have time to hear it. Now, let's watch how differently this can go when we are using behavioral interview techniques.
Welcome. We are so thrilled that you're interested in coming to work for the Music City Prep Clinic. I've reviewed your resume, and I'd just like to ask you a few questions during this interview. How did you learn about the job?
I've been impressed with the work of this clinic since it opened. I see the commercials for the services you provide, and actually heard one of your employees speak at a conference I attended. It just seems like such a fun and professional environment to work in. I called one day and asked if you had any openings, and that's how I learned about this position.
Oh, very good. Wow. What about this job do you think you would enjoy?
I like helping people. I know this is an organization that makes it possible for everyone to have access to PrEP. I think it's important to want to be a part of this organization's mission.
That's great. We love hearing that. Tell me about experience you've had previously with similar organizations.
I currently work for a hospital as a mental health assistant. I've had that job for 2 years. Prior to that, I worked as an admissions clerk in a nursing home. I didn't have a lot of patient contact there, but I got to work with the patients' families and help them understand the patient's insurance benefits. I really enjoy helping people and seeing the immediate benefit of my work.
Wow, that's some excellent experience. It sounds like you've worked with people in really difficult situations. Though you like the work, it must get challenging at times. Can you tell me about a time when a patient might have asked you to do something you didn't want to do and how you handled that situation?
I experienced that at my current job when a patient...
You can see the difference it makes when you use behavioral interview techniques. When the interviewer asks open-ended questions, the candidate shares a lot more information that helps the interviewer know the candidate better. The interviewer can observe how well the candidate communicates verbally and non-verbally. The resume can give you good information about someone's education and job history, but it doesn't tell you much about their ability to navigate challenges that often occur in workplace environments. Some other open-ended questions you might ask include, tell me about a time you had to fire an employee and how you handled that. Tell me about a conflict you once had with a supervisor and how you handled it. Tell me about a time you were assigned a new task you had never performed previously. With this strategy, we want the candidate to set the scene to tell us about a specific situation. We want to understand the task they had to perform and the purpose of that task. We want to hear about the action they took to achieve the task. And we want to know the result. What was the outcome? We call this the STAR method, and it is an important aspect of behavioral interviewing. Let's check back in on that interview and see how it's going.
Can you tell me about a time when a patient might have asked you to do something you didn't want to do and how you handled that situation?
I experienced that at my current job when a patient shared information with me that made me realize he was in a sexually abusive relationship. He didn't want me to tell his therapist. I went to my supervisor for instruction about how to manage the situation. My supervisor recommended that I inform the therapist and that I thoroughly document the situation in the patient's record. She also instructed me about how to initiate a referral to the Sexual Assault Center. As part of the treatment team, I'm expected to communicate with other team members and document my interactions with the patient. It would not be in the best interest of the patient to withhold this information from their therapist. It would also be a betrayal to the treatment team and the patient's safety for me not to act on the information. I had to document this and make the other treatment team members aware of what I knew. I informed the patient that this was important information that affected their health and safety, so I couldn't keep it a secret. I immediately notified the patient's therapist, documented this in the patient's chart so that other members of the team would be aware, and gave the patient a list of resources that included confidential services like the Sexual Assault Center. Then, the following morning, we had a treatment team meeting to discuss how to further address the situation. Immediately afterwards, the therapist and I met with the patient. Actually, the therapist decided to work with the patient individually to address the situation and protect the patient's safety. A few months later, I saw the patient again at a follow-up appointment. He informed me that he was no longer in a relationship and then thanked me for providing the resources that helped him escape the abuse.
By using the STAR method of behavioral interviewing, we learned several things about this potential new employee. She takes her job seriously. She works collaboratively on teams. She documents and communicates effectively with coworkers and patients. She is assertive at alerting others when there are potential problems. She is able to say no when it is necessary and in the patient's best interest. She acts quickly for the best outcome of the patient and to prevent problems for the organization and her coworkers.
Not every interview will go this smoothly. Sometimes candidates don't provide you all the information you're looking for. This is why it is important to take notes. When they tell you about the situation, be sure they are also giving you information about the task they performed, the action they took, and the ending result. Ask whatever questions you need to fill in the gaps.
We are not necessarily looking for job candidates that sound too good to be true. We want employees that have navigated challenges, learned from failures, and can effectively manage a difficult task from beginning to end. We know that working in organizations like ours can sometimes be messy, difficult, and not go as planned. We want to hire employees who can handle those situations effectively and not give up when the going gets tough.
Most of us know what it is like to have a conflict with a supervisor, coworker, or a client we are trying to help. We know what it is like to fail at something when we want to succeed. It is highly unlikely that a good job candidate will have never experienced this. Don't accept that as an answer, and don't settle for hypothetical answers like, well, I have never had that situation, but if I did, here is what I would do. Behavioral interviewing strategies will help you identify those potential employees that are right for the job and will add value to the team.
It's okay for the job candidate to ask you to clarify your questions. This also demonstrates their desire to communicate effectively. Be sure to allow time in interviews for candidates to ask you questions about the job so that they can determine if we are the right fit for them.
Be sure to stick to your predetermined interview questions so that each candidate is being measured equally. Avoid questions that could be perceived as discriminatory or too personal. All questions should be related to the job description. For example, if a candidate happens to mention they don't own a car, don't ask them how they will get to work. That is really not your business. Tell them the schedule for the available job and ask them if these are hours they are available to work. If so, how they get to work is up to them.
We have already mentioned that it is important to take thorough notes when you are interviewing for a job. If you are interviewing multiple candidates, you might not remember how each of them answered your relevant questions. Good notes allow you to refer back to the interview for clarification. You may need to refer back to these notes even years after the employee has been hired. These are the first notes entered in the employee's file and might be necessary later to justify why they were hired. The notes also demonstrate that each candidate was asked the same questions and measured equally. You never know when your motives might be questioned. Good documentation demonstrates you have been reasonable and ethical in the hiring process. If you didn't document the interview, then you can't justify your interview process. If you have questions about how to document the interview, please consult the Human Resources Manager.
There are some things that you never want to say or ask in an interview. Some things are not necessary to discuss until you have selected the ideal candidate and you are ready to make an offer. You don't want the candidate to assume you are making them an offer during the interview. Statements like, "This will be your office," or "Here is where you will sit," can lead the candidate to believe you are definitely hiring them. You also don't want them to assume that you are immediately rejecting them. Stick to your predetermined questions and give each candidate a fair chance. Remember to avoid questions or statements that are unnecessary, personal, and possibly even illegal.
Where do you go to church? Who'd you vote for? You're not from here, are you? I gotta know, are those your real teeth? You look pregnant. Are you expecting?
If it's not job-related, don't bring it up. If you are in doubt about a candidate, discuss this with the HR manager. You can always follow up with the candidate if you need more information later.
Once you have selected the right candidate for the job, you are ready for HR to make an official offer, including the pay rate for the position. If the candidate accepts, they will need to pass a background check before hiring is complete. They will then be ready to begin the onboarding process, which includes training for their position. This cannot happen immediately. You and the candidate will need to be patient during this process. Remember that your Human Resources Department is ready to assist you whenever you have questions or needs during your interview and hiring process.
These effective interview techniques are part of a great experience by design for potential and future MCPC employees. We begin earning our employees' trust even before they begin their first day. We take care of our employees so that they can take care of our patients. We want our employees to feel satisfied with their jobs and trust us with their livelihoods. Employee satisfaction is linked to patient satisfaction. This is how we create the MCPC experience.